Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, let's look at some of the most expensive alternate art cards from peak Sword and Shield era of 2021 and see when was the best time to buy them. And see if it's time to pick up the latest alternate art cards like Charizard, Giratina, Lugia, and Machamp, since these have fallen quite a bit over the past year. First card we'll be looking at is going to be Rayquaza VMAX from Evolving Skies. I think this is the second most expensive card from the Sword and Shield era. This card was released at $252, then hit a low of $170, a 32% decline, in just a short period of time, 4 months in December of 2021. It did go above its release date price after a year and hit an all-time high of $279. In October of 2022, there was a run-up of a lot of alternate art cards around that time. Since that run-up, it has fallen back below its release date price, now sitting at $207, 18% below release date, which is quite interesting since this card is the second most expensive card and yet is still below release day 2 years after it was out. Next up is Gengar VMAX from Fusion Strike, one of the most popular cards out there from the Sword and Shield era. This card was released at $128, then dropped just a small amount to $97, which is a 24% decline. Hit that bottom in June, then went past its release day price in the 10th month of release. Did hit an all-time high of $201 in September of 2022. It's fallen a bit back to $189, but it's still well above its release day price by 48%. So it's one of those cards that has done exceptionally well since its release. Next up is Blaziken VMAX from Chilling Reign. Release day price of $127, hit a low of $92, which is a 27% decline, hit that low in 13 months after release. So this one had a gradual decline, and then it shot back up above that slightly right after, during the alternate art run up again, and hit an all-time high of $195. Now sitting slightly above its release date price at $133. Next up is the Galarian Moltres V, one of my personal favorite alternate art cards in the Sword and Shield era. It had a release date price of $111, then dropped to $69, which is a 37% decline. Took 8 months to get to that low, then gradually over a year it shot back above its release date price in November of 2022. It did hit an all-time high of $118. It's declined since then, below release day again, and sitting at $107. I'm personally hoping this card drops a bit more. I'm trying to snipe one for below $100 in the PSA 9. Next up is Dragonite V from Evolving Skies, another card I want to add to my collection. Release day price for this card was $86, dropped 24% to $65 5 months after release. It surpassed its release day price a year and a half after, hit an all-time high of $94 in December of 2022. Since then, it's back below release date price slightly at $81. This card has held actually very steady around that $80 mark, so it might just be priced correctly, and it's just time for me to pick up this card. Next card up is going to be the Sleepy Tyranitar V from Battle Styles. A very interesting price action for a card that I personally do not like the artwork wise that much. This card has a very interesting release date price of $162, but fell 63% to $59 in a year's time. Did hit a high of $96 in March of 2023, but now it's still 50% below its release date price, sitting at $82. I wonder if the artwork is just a bit too derpy and it's holding it back from achieving new highs, because Tyranitar is one of my favorite Pokemons and I am always looking for a Tyranitar card. Even looking through all that data, it's interesting to look at, but it's very hard to pull out any conclusion about when the best time to buy a card was. All cards bottom out at different points after release. The only thing you can kind of pull from that information was that they all dropped about 25 to 30% for alternate art cards. But if you compare that to now, the 2022 alternate art cards, these are well below that percentage. They are 50% and more below release day price, except for Giratina, which is only about 10% below release day price. And Machamp right now is actually right at release day price, I think. So it's very hard to compare apples to oranges, but what I think I can kind of look at as comparison is, where do I price these cards personally, right? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to what you're willing to pay for each card. Now, price action is dictated by supply and demand, and I think in 2022, Pokemon had a better chance of catching up to demand because we're a year after COVID, so more supply was out there, and so there's a lot more for these cards to drop in price to get to the point where they're at now since release. Column 2 is what's most interesting for me to look at because it's where all these cards bottom out at price-wise. I always felt Machamp and Aerodactyl should have been a tier below Charizard and Lugia. They're not as popular as those Pokemon, and so their alt arts should not have been over $100. I always thought they should be closer to the Dragonite, Tyranitar tier of popular Pokemon, but not, S tier popular. And so I'm glad to see that they actually bottomed out recently around those price sections. So that's a good way of how I determine the value of a card should be. It's definitely more art than science, because if you look at the Charizard V and the Lugia V, they're at $122 and $100 each. Very close to where Gengar bottomed out at, and Gengar is one of the most popular Pokemon, but I think those two are just as popular or even more popular, especially Charizard is definitely more popular. But depending on supply and demand, there is more listings for Charizard V, so that can always bring it down more, but it's close to where I think is fairly priced, if all things were equal. Now Giratina is the anomaly. I thought this card was going to drop eventually below $200 and maybe to even $180. I want this card more than Rayquaza VMAX, so I thought the demand would be more than where Rayquaza bottomed out. Again, that's how I determine cards, so that was the theory I had. It did not play out that way, but it did just recently hit its low, so I think there's a chance that it could continue going lower, or this could be the last chance to pick it up. Let me know what you guys think. Have these cards hit their bottom? I mean, what's your strategy when it comes to picking up these cards at the right price for you? And being wrong can cost you anywhere from an ETB to even a booster box, right, on some of these cards. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.